Welcome to another video here with Discover Dunwoody. I am Mark Galvin, the Director of Marketing with Discover Dunwoody, and we are so excited that we're walking down the street again, and you guys know how this goes. We just find people, and we bring them in, and we have a conversation with them. Well, I'm excited that Sharon Collins has joined us today. Sharon, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
You bet. And so Sharon is in our space. She is well, you know what? I'm going to put you in that meeting planner category. Your title is Director of Conferences at Georgia Municipal Association. So she does a lot more than just meetings, but we wanted to bring you in to talk about that meeting space. And you're just game. She actually said I could ask her anything. So
you can ask me anything.
That's still true, yeah? Well, I want you guys to know some things about Sharon before we get into all that interesting stuff. So I think this is fun. You were a newspaper reporter.
I was.
Tell me about that.
Well, that was extraordinarily exciting because you get the opportunity to meet people, you get to talk to them, and you get to really find out what makes a story a story. So that was always interesting to me. And like meeting planning, I like being behind the scenes. But you know, when you put people at ease and they know that they can trust you, it just is a wealth of information. So it was really, really enjoyable.
You know, in being a newspaper reporter, you have to tease out why, right? And that is a lot of life.
Yes,
really.
For sure.
Why would somebody want to engage with this piece? Why would somebody want to watch a video? All of those things are so important, and I bet it translates nicely into planning any programs or trade shows or the like.
It sure does. I mean, if you look at it from the opportunity of communications, which is key, so you want to tell the value, you want to tell the story, you really want to get down to the brass tacks of why it's important for people to, you know, listen to each other and know what's going on out there. So
listening to each other, we need to do that
Yes.
more, right? But
We
it is
do.
so important, especially on the meeting planning side. So what's interesting is you were a newspaper reporter, and the Medical Society of Delaware
Yes.
became your new home, and that was your first entree into the association space.
yes.
Did you go straight in meetings, or were you doing other things with?
Well, it was a small staff, so you were
Okay.
a little bit a jack of all trades. So
Okay.
you were engaged with membership and meetings, and those two couple so intricately
Yeah.
because you need your members to come to the meetings and your members need to go to the meetings. So it was a natural partnership between those two areas. So,
Yeah.
and then communications was a third thread.
Wow.
That you have to communicate the value of membership and also the importance of going to the meetings. So all three of those were intertwined, and I was over all three of those at the Medical Society of Delaware.
A lot of people probably know this, but I think it's really worthwhile to mention. What is the lifeblood of associations? Where does the revenue come from?
So that all can depend on the association. Most of it is dues revenue.
Okay.
So your members, and there's two types of association, there's professional and trade. So trade association, the company belongs to, a professional one, the person belongs to.
Good.
So dues revenue is a primary source, but then you also have, of course, meetings revenue. So we do charge registration fees, ticket fees, et cetera, et cetera. So that goes into the pot
Sure.
to help offset expenses. And then, of course, you have sponsorship opportunities. So you're always encouraging companies that have relative business with the membership to come and, you know, sponsor programs. And then lastly, you have the exhibitors. So, and a sponsor can be an exhibitor, but sometimes they're not. So trade shows are a tremendous revenue source for associations.
Right. So important. And as a hotelier, if you're a hotelier watching this, it is so important to remember that the purpose for a program, especially coming from the association side, and I would say it's true for even the professional association or trade shows, right? You said the two differences were the professional and
Trade
trade right?
association.
And so you have to provide value for people to want to come, and as a result, it's life-giving to the associations.
Exactly. I mean, you have to sort of prove return on in 3 areas. So you want definitely return on the investment because people are paying money, whether it be attendees or exhibitors or sponsors to be there.
Right.
But you also set objectives for your meeting. So why are we having this? There has to be an overarching reason. So you want to measure that objective, which again you can do through evaluations or just networking opportunities.
Right.
And then lastly is the experience. So you provide a reason for folks to come and what they will get out of it to take back to their organization. So that experience that they get is just as critical as the others to measure.
So critical. It is, and it's hard to measure too sometimes. I bet that's a little hard. All right, quickly. I want to go through some of the other things that you've done. You came to Atlanta in '94.
Yes.
You were with the Southeast Lumber Manufacturing Association. You spent some time at Kellen.
I did.
One of my most favorite groups there. And then you went to American Cancer.
Yes.
And you became the managing director of American Cancer. And on a scale, and there's a couple of ways I guess we can measure this, but American Cancer is it one of the top 5 associations in Georgia as well as maybe the world?
Well, interestingly, the American Cancer Society is not an association.
Oh, see, thank you.
Well, and the difference is it's a nonprofit corporation, so
Okay.
they don't get any of their revenue from dues, and that's primarily a revenue source for associations. So they get everything through donations, and so that put them in sort of that corporate bucket, but still a nonprofit in the sense that they aren't publicly traded or have shareholders or anything like that.
Got
So,
it. Okay, good.
but it was a different structure for me. So
Right.
it actually put me in the corporate lane
Right.
for the nearly 14 years that I was there.
14 years, goodness gracious. Now, and the why there is so it was totally different, and so it was a
Yes.
whole different mindset, and so your strategy changed.
It did, for sure. They had several pillars that they would advocate. So advocacy was one. So increased cancer funding
Sure,
was always
absolutely.
a primary reason. You want to have that funding out there for those researchers to be able to find preventative measures or ultimately a cure.
Right.
And then, they had awareness. So cancer prevention was a huge pillar that they had. Research. So we actually funded researchers to be in the labs looking at ways to, again, eradicate the disease.
So fascinating.
So there was just so many different ways that organization that is over 100 years old,
Well, I didn't know that.
founded, in 1911, I believe, but don't necessarily quote me
Yeah,
on that.
that's all right.
But over 100 years, and their brand is just so trusted that we were entrusted to maintain that integrity of the brand.
That brand is a great brand.
Yes,
without a doubt.
yes.
Based in Atlanta? Is Atlanta?
It is
headquartered?
headquartered
Okay,
here.
Good. And it probably has something to do with the CDC and some of the other things that
Yeah,
Atlanta
for
offers.
75 years it was headquartered in New York, but then they did recognize the synergy with CDC
Sure.
and moved to Atlanta in the mid-'80s.
Okay, well, good. So, American Cancer, you were there for, did you say 14 years?
Nearly 14 years.
Goodness.
Yeah,
And then you went back to your roots, right?
that's right.
So we've already talked about the differences between that nonprofit and associations, and you went back and joined Georgia Municipal Association in 2021.
Yes.
You're a newbie-ish, right?
I am a newbie to that organization and its mission, but it is fascinating. There are 537 cities in Georgia.
Wow.
It's one of the largest city-run states in the country.
My goodness, that's fantastic.
Yes.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention that Sharon brings to the table is experiences with MPI and PCMA. So you were president of MPI.
I'm currently the immediate past president.
So you just gave up those reins, but you're still very involved.
Still very involved, yes.
Past president is certainly that.
Yes.
And then with PCMA Southeast, you were involved with them for a while. Have you served on a board there or anything?
Yes,
like that?
yeah, I served
Okay.
on the board and am immediate past president of that association as well.
Well, we appreciate all the things that you do for our industry
Yes,
by serving
yes.
on these boards, because we all know it takes a little time. And so we appreciate that. Well, I want to ask you a question, if I can. Can I get personal here?
Sure.
My kids, I have 2 daughters.
Okay.
They have asked me, both of them said, hey, I think I want to get into meeting planning. And I would love to send them to this video and say, hey, you should go check this out. What is a day in the life of a meeting planner? And I think, planning programs before the programs is one thing, and
Yes.
then on-site's a whole different.
Right.
What does that look like?
So we like to call ourselves meeting professionals.
Very important.
And it does, because I think it constitutes that the hospitality industry is one of the largest in the world.
Right.
And being a part of that, to me, is one of the most incredible experiences. As you mentioned early on, my career path was being a journalist, ultimately working at the Washington Post. That's what I wanted to do. I watched all the President's Men, and I was going to crack the next Watergate.
That's right. I could see you would have been great at that, for the record.
Thank you. But there's a lot of, again, components that are in common, but one thing, the day in the life, is expect the unexpected. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but it really is the opportunity, because you never know what's going to be around the corner. So it's almost like left brain, right brain balance that you have to do, because to be a meeting professional, you have to be, of course, organized, detail oriented, down to the molecular level of what you're working on, whether it be, the specifications to vendors, whether it be your budget, whether it be, mapping out your space, all of that takes just a microscopic eye to get all of those moving pieces in an organized manner.
Right.
But the flip side to that is that you get to be creative in your stage sets, or in your decor, or in your entertainment. So it really plays into that part of the meeting, and it's putting these two pieces together and marrying them up that creates that experience that your attendees come to expect to engage with.
So once you're on site, one of the great things about being a meeting professional is you're able to travel, you're able to go to great places. What is it like when you get on site?
Well, it is 24/7.
Okay. So literally, your
Literally.
phone can ring
At any
3
moment, because you're the point of contact for everything and everyone.
Right.
So if there is a medical emergency, you are contacted first, and as part of your emergency response plan that you enact. But you are the point of contact for anyone at the hotel staff.
Wow.
So whether it be security, your conference manager, front desk. So you are literally on call 24 hours a day.
Goodness.
But when there's not, say, emergencies, you are the first up, first on the show floor, last on the show floor, last to bed. So it is incredibly long days,
Right.
but it is still the most rewarding experience that you will ever have.
Why is it rewarding?
Well, two reasons. You get to see your concept come to life. So you go from one-dimensional to three-dimensional, which is incredible. But I think overarching of that is seeing people enjoying themselves,
Right.
or networking, or getting that education that they came for. It's seeing that is really the part that you're just like, okay, job well done.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. All the work comes to fruition. You get to see
Yes.
the grand reveal, if you
Right,
will, right?
exactly.
It may be a 3-day program, but it's a grand reveal.
Right,
and,
right.
And you can see people enjoy it.
Right, and even again, if they're, if you're seeing the exhibitors engaging with, the folks walking the trade show, and you see those connections being made, you see the business card exchanged or the QR code scanned, it's like you helped that relationship come to fruition.
I love that,
And
yeah.
that it's just incredible that, and meeting professionals are like background people. We are behind the scenes, behind the curtain. And so to just be able to observe and see that, again, the objectives are getting accomplished, the investment is there, and the experience is being experienced, it's just incredible.
Yeah. There are so many moving parts.
Yes.
And we could spend hours.
Days,
yeah,
days talking about
We
that.
didn't even talk about contracts, right?
Yes.
Speaking of details, and I know contracting can be
It's
can
one of
be
my
tedious.
it's one of my passions,
Oh,
though.
wow.
That because you understand the business side of it and the legal side of it, and
Right.
seeing those come together and bind you with, any type of vendor. I'm a little bit of a contract geek.
I love that. So there are multiple things that a meeting professional needs to pay attention to when you lean into a program, and you've outlined some of those for us in advance. Operational, strategic, budget, attendee. I kind of want to piece some of this together and ask some specific questions about pieces of those. How do you get attendees to want to come to a program?
Oh, well, that's multifaceted, of course. You want to make sure that you're providing the best educational experience. So when you're selecting speakers, is it relevant topics? So you got to go all the way down to the basics. And you can do that in several ways. You have subject matter experts, of course, that might be on staff or consult for you. But ask your attendees. We regularly are surveying them or asking in the evaluation, what do you need to know? What do you need to be able to do your job better?
See, and I think this is interesting because there are a lot of us, and me included, I feel like I know all this, right? And so it is really a fallacy to believe I could put together an agenda without reaching to the membership saying, what is it that you want to learn?
Right. Yeah, that's a key component. And, especially when, like with our organization, we're multi-generational. So
that's
what
another
whole nother level
consider.
that you have to incorporate into that, and making sure that you're speaking to all of the generations is really important, because you want those younger professionals to see the value of the association as well.
It's really interesting, and that value part I think is key. I have certainly looked at programs and determined whether I'm going to go to it or not based on not the general session speaker, but the breakouts.
The breakouts. Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
That's really where you get down and dirty with the topics, sort of, in a more intimate setting, and the exchange.
I seem to target it, right?
Yeah.
I need to learn this specific thing, and if somebody's there to speak that, and honestly, the other side of it is, who is the person running that breakout?
Right.
I need to know that they're going to be the expert that I can really learn from.
Right. And the others around. I mean, an interactive breakout session is really where you get those hidden treasures of people saying, well, this is what I do. Well, this is what I do. And that exchange of peer-to-peer really, just accomplishes what you want to in a breakout. So
When I was a hotel salesperson, the best advice I got was go to the breakouts. Don't skip them, because that's where you make the best connections.
exactly. It's very true, for sure.
So, I have a funny story. There was back in the day in the hotel business, there was a joke, kind of a anecdotal joke that was shared, that there was a site visit in hell. And so all these people, the meeting professionals went to hell, and Satan welcomed them. It was wonderful. They had beautiful resorts, and they had wonderful meals, and the beds were absolutely perfect. And all of them were just blown away. And so they had to pick between heaven and hell, and the site visit in hell was so great that they chose hell.
Okay.
And so they landed back into hell, they walked in the front door, and it was fire and brimstone, and everything was just horrible. And they said, what the heck? What happened? And Satan says, oh, the first visit, that was the site visit.
Ah.
I want to know, how important is a site visit?
Well, a site visit is critical. And when I request a site visit, I want to do it with my CSM too. Those people know that hotel inside and out. And most importantly, they know the meeting space.
So CSM stands for?
Conference Service Manager.
Good.
Yes. But those folks absolutely, and I love sales, but those are the heartbeat of any hotel, any venue, that they know how they can configure that space, they know what will fit, and they will be, direct and honest about it.
And I think that's the most interesting part, is that they're direct and honest. So if you're a salesperson and you're putting together a site visit, you want to make sure that you have that CSM there with you to answer those questions.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, I didn't always do that on my site visits.
Yeah. And I think it's not the norm for a planner to request that.
Right.
But being in this industry for 30 years, I've learned a trick or two.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that is the critical part because, again, and they know how all the departments come together too. They know how banquets, facilitates with the houseman, that facilitates with the setup crew, that facilitates with the AV. They know how that dance happens so perfectly. So they are the unsung heroes.
So if the CSM had appeared with Satan, they would have said, it doesn't look
That's
like
not going to
this."
work. Yeah. They're like, that's not going to work.
It's a little hotter normally.
Yes, yeah. Oh my gosh, that is the number one
Oh.
thing we get is rooms are too hot or too cold. So,
Oh,
yeah.
I bet that's a whole nother
That's a whole
conversation, right? Because
yeah.
I'm always find myself freezing in a room.
Yes.
And the person beside me's hot.
Right.
It's
Yes.
got to be difficult. So you're coming to Dunwoody
Yes.
in September.
Correct.
And you did you see a number of facilities for site visits before you
We
picked
did.
our
Yes.
hotel?
Yes,
Okay.
we did 3 different venues that we looked at. Well, initially we did the proposal, so we got more responses from the proposal.
Sure.
And based on what we saw on paper and the key areas, then we narrowed it down to 3 properties.
I remember that as a hotelier, it was difficult to try to attract business
Yeah.
to a particular location. But once we had that site visit set up, that's where the rubber meets the road.
It
That's
does.
where you can really make a difference whether somebody selects your hotel or not.
Yeah,
So we appreciate you picking the Ravinia. You're coming in September.
right.
We love that hotel, so thank you for coming to our destination.
And one other key part for a site visit is I love to see an existing group in there. I like to see it in action.
Sure.
Show me what it looks like set up. Because if you go into an empty space, it's like, okay, it's a big empty space. It's almost like going into a home that is not staged.
Right.
So if I can go and kind of peek in, secret shopper kind of thing
Right.
with the group that's in there, it's just, again, another level of success that you know you're picking the right property.
And that is, it's like anything, right? And I love your example of real estate, of a home being set up so you can kind of envision it.
Right.
One of the challenges that we have on the marketing side is coming up with images of our hotels in use. Because let's be honest, when you're in the ballroom of the Ravinia, you don't necessarily want us to come and take a picture of your event. So getting the ability to market what something looks like while it's in use is a challenge, but
Sure.
it's important
Yeah.
because it helps you see what it would look like
Right.
when it's
For
when the
sure.
people are there.
Yeah, but seeing it 3-dimensionally and in person just puts that another layer of assurance that this is going to work for my program.
Well, I can tell you how many times I would try to plan a site inspection when the meeting space was all empty. So it's not a good idea. Plan a site visit when there's a program happening.
Right, and that's my preference
Yeah.
because you really want to see operationally how it's working and
Sure.
and that's just the best way to do it. So, and I'm very open when my group is in. If a site visit is coming around,
That's
I'm
key.
like, come on in.
Yeah.
Look at anything, and that's a lot of times where I get my best ideas. I'm like, oh,
Wow, look at that.
look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, how the other group is doing it.
Right.
And then you hand over a business card and you have an instant friend in your industry.
I love that. So Sharon, what is it about PCMA and MPI that you find so valuable?
Well, first of all, this industry is in my blood. I go to bed thinking about it, I wake up thinking about it, and everything in between. But volunteering is the smallest way I can give back to an industry that has given me so much. If I could just make one influence, it really speaks volumes. And serving on both organizations has enabled me to meet other planners. Normally planners don't intersect with each other because I'm doing my job, you're doing your job.
Sure.
Sure, we have suppliers in common, but there really isn't an opportunity for us to get together and exchange ideas, except for like an MPI or a PCMA Southeast. And some of the meeting professionals that I have met through both organizations are now my forever friends. They are people that understand what I do, what I go through, and can be there for me if I need just someone to bounce an idea or just have a moment where I need to recheck things, and I'm forever grateful to both organizations to bring that together as a volunteer. It really does become your second job, but because I love this job so much, it doesn't feel like work. And it's just something that I would encourage everybody to volunteer. It's the lifeblood of an association is its volunteer members. So volunteer at a committee, get on the board. It will be rewarding. I absolutely promise it.
So how important have MPI and PCMA been to you in your career?
Oh, undeniably incredibly influential.
Really?
Because there's so much that you learn from doing it, whether again you're engaging with your peers or you're putting together an educational program, you're putting together an event, you're driving membership, you're looking at the financials. You know, I'm not only a contract geek, but I'm a budget wizard.
Right.
And because you understand how an association functions financially, which is the backbone of it, and all of that, you can dig in deep with volunteering on one of the organizations.
And so you're not, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you have been able to enhance your own career in a profound way
Yes.
by being involved with PCMA
Yes.
and MPI.
Very much so. It is
Wow.
professional development on steroids. So
That's
you
fascinating.
really get to, and you get out of it as much as you put in.
Sure.
So I recognized, you know, getting on the board and getting into a leadership position was something that would really stimulate, you know, my brain. So that's the path that I chose. But there's something for everybody at the volunteer level for both organizations, and there's multiple organizations in Georgia that you can belong to. There's IAEE, there's SITE, there's so many. So find your passion, get involved, and it will be forever rewarding.
So what I'm hearing is, and I think this is real important to mention, is that getting involved isn't just for networking, but it actually will enhance your own career, your own value,
Yes.
your own knowledge, make you much more effective at your job and make you more successful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
great.
A lot of that I take from there, I take back to my job, and I make sure that my, you know, C-suite knows I'm bringing this to you because of what I got from serving or volunteering in one of these organizations.
Bravo. So much there. Again, we could talk about all this. Actually, I could do this for hours, but
Me too.
We're not going to, regrettably. I would love for you to share with our audience, where do you want people to track you down? How could they reach out to you?
So LinkedIn is the best resource. I have all of my credentials and everything there. And then also our staff is listed on our company website, so gacities.com.
gacities.com. I
Yes.
love that. That is a great domain for the Georgia Municipal Association.
Yes, in our 537 cities,
Wow, 537, all in Georgia.
all in Georgia.
I didn't know there were that many cities in the state.
Yes,
state.
yes.
Wow. Well, I am so glad you made time to come by and talk
Oh,
with
it's
us
my
today,
pleasure.
Sharon. Thank you so much. And for all of you, thank you for joining us here for another video with Discover Dunwoody. I am Mark Galvin. I'm the Director of Marketing with Discover Dunwoody. I am thrilled to share with you that the show's produced by Madison Holtz, who is our marketing coordinator, and the sound technician for our show is Emily Insor Gibson. On behalf of the entire Discover Dunwoody team, thank you for watching us. Be sure to follow us on any of our social media sites, which is generally at Discover Dunwoody, or check out our website, discoverdunwoody.com. I'm Mark Galvin. Once again, thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.